Hey Dude,
The 90s Called
with Christine Taylor and David Lascher. Hey everybody, welcome back to Hey Dude, The 90s Called. I am Christine.
What's up, Christine? As you know, I'm David.
I know.
Once again.
Oh my God. How is your summer going?
It's off to a good start. Chelsea's off to camp.
Great. Check.
Yeah, Hannah's working. Casey's home and working. And I have just been hiking and playing pickleball and chilling in the pool and then still working.
Summer fun.
Yeah,
Love
how about you?
We did a little graduation trip with Ella to Paris for a week, and that was really great. I don't even know if I've talked about that. Maybe I brought that up.
I knew, but not. I don't think
I don't know, but we had this amazing trip, and they're getting the whole city ready for the Olympics, and it's just like I'm very excited for the Olympics. I love watching the Olympics.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
let's go. How about the fact that as the sports nerd that I am, and David, you know that I am, Wimbledon starts next week. I'll go even deeper with my nerdiness. The Tour de France.
Oh, yeah.
Cycling starts next week. And then all of that wraps up. And then we get the Olympics. And so it's going to be a sporty summer of lots of sports.
Wait, when is the Olympics? In the fall?
No, the Olympics are the summer. It's like late July.
Oh, my goodness. Right.
I think it's 3 weeks.
I didn't realize.
Yeah. And like you would drive around Paris and they're just setting up all these, like right in the heart of the city, you know, the bleachers so it's going to be just cool. I mean, that city is so magical and so beautiful, and it's just going to feel so cinematic. And you're going to see like the runners and the swimmers, and then the Eiffel Tower sparkling.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, so that's summer. But we have an amazing guest today.
One of my favorite actors.
And how about like, you know, I know this is our 90s podcast and we have a lot of guests who have done things in the 90s, but Hank to me, he is the 90s because that was the birth of the Simpsons. And like, I just feel like there's life before the Simpsons and we don't even know it because it's still going.
Simpsons started in the 80s, but I think really caught fire in the 90s.
Late 80s, right?
Late 80s. But then the, quiz show and the Birdcage. And I mean, the filmography is unbelievable.
And that's what I want to talk, because I've known him forever, but I never heard how he got started in all of this. And I also really just want to ask about like, if the Simpsons changed it, like what was the game changer where he became like household name Hank Azaria?
Yeah.
And I don't think it was the Simpsons, but I
so much to talk to him about.
So much to talk about. So why don't we bring in my friend Hank Azaria?
Hello.
Look at that.
What's up, Hank Azaria?
Hank.
How's it going?
You sound great. He always sounds great.
Well, I'm a professional.
He is a pro.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've got this dialed in. Hank, thank you so much for coming on. You're such a gem.
My pleasure. Always love talking about the 90s. Every chance I get.
Well, that's when we met.
That is true.
Early 90s. We had dear Richard Kind on, and I was
That's terrific. I'm gonna do this as Richard.
Please.
That's good.
But do you remember that was when I met you and when I met Richard was when David Pressman and I were guest starring on Blossom, which David Lascher in the Zoom box next to you was starring in. So,
my goodness.
David and I had already known each other, but that was when I met David Pressman, Andrew Hill Newman, you, Richard Kind. Who else? Everybody.
Wait,
Matthew.
they were doing Herman's Head at Sunset Gower. I think we shared, there were dressing rooms right next to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, roommates sort of over there.
Right.
Yes.
In the Witt Thomas family. Yeah.
Exactly. And you guys were you had poker night, you had your group, and I and Andrew Hill Newman were sort of welcomed in to the gang.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. My memory is always of meeting people at the Formosa, which might not be exactly where I met you, but probably was where I saw you most for several years.
Yes, close enough, right?
Yes.
That was your hang, Formosa Cafe?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Matthew Perry and I, we met in 1986 or 7, doing a pilot together. Matthew was 17 and I was 22. And we started going to the Formosa way before anybody rediscovered it. It was going to close down. It was literally me and Matthew and two barflies in there for like a year or two.
It was just like the quintessential dive bar, right? Like, but by the time I had gotten there, it was cooler. It was the hang. But you guys, it was like done, right? It was just like a divey, dark place.
It was dark. There were no light in that place, but it was so fun.
We were like the first two in there. In the mid to late 80s, and then everybody joined us after a while.
And then there was just it was the place. I mean, the memories that I have there, so many stories. There's some ridiculous story that Ben remembers, but it was before I knew Ben, that Patrick Van Horn got dared by someone in our group to go over and either sit on Ben's lap or do something ridiculous because Ben was in the bar. And I didn't know Ben at the time, but I knew the group that was giving.
You knew the idiots.
Patrick the dare.
Daring Patrick to do that.
Yes. And he did it. And I don't think it was received too well. And
Probably not.
I remember Ben feeling like, why did the guy from Swingers come and just sit on my lap?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Pressman was involved in that.
Oh,
Matthew
absolutely.
did something with Patrick Van Horn, and then he became a staple for a while. And then one of the activities of the Formosa was anyone famous in there was not safe from David Pressman's hijinks.
Right,
that being a good, I'll go over and sit on Ben Stiller's lap to see how that goes.
Exactly.
I remember, who was that guy? Larry, I can't remember the actor's last name. Larry, he was on, I think he was on LA Law.
Larry Drake. He was Dr. Giggles. Remember who's Dr. Giggles? Dr. Giggles.
I think this is good 90s lore.
Oh, this is great.
He was sitting at the bar one night, and David you can imagine the field day. He was quoting the trailer. The doctor is in. Yeah, he was quoting the trailer, quoting Larry Drake's credits.
Right. The doctor is out, ... of his mind.
Right. Exactly. and Larry was kind of chuckling. But who was it also one night we went, it was Roger. Roger was involved in this one. Our friend Roger.
I love Roger.
Remember Roger?
Yes, of course.
Whatever celebrity was in there, no matter how big or not, whatever their credits were, Roger and David would start screaming their credits at the top of their lungs in the Formosa.
I read Matthew's book recently, and he talks about David and he talks about Craig Bierko as being like two of the funniest people he's ever met.
Oh, they are. I mean, Craig, they're very different senses of humor. Pressman was almost in that Andy Kaufman school of committing so hard to the most insane things.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that you could dare him to do that he wouldn't do.
It was almost like you were unsafe too. Like you said, just no celebrity was safe, but even as a friend, I remember like you would be afraid to leave the table and come back for fear of what was going to descend upon you.
You'd be said about you and then, and then be worked up.
Worked against
you. He was like Jackass before Jackass.
Absolutely. In that vein, not as physical because he was kind of a physical coward. Love you, David, but I never saw evidence of the opposite.
No, but good comic satire is always more dangerous.
Well, I wrote this, kind of loving tribute to Matthew as an op-ed in the New York Times
which was beautiful, Hank. That was really, really a great piece.
Thank you.
Really beautiful piece.
And it was really I wrote some of the crazy bits Matthew would do. And a lot of that was Pressman inspired, if not, for example, going into a men's room, that was all true. It was David and Matthew. If you go into a public, there was a period of time, you would know this, Christine, since you probably weren't in the men's room, but there was a period of time, many years, where a crowded restroom, I knew this was like catnip to David and Matthew. And I would beg them. I would say, please, guys, please don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. And they go, okay. I'm like, no, but really. And okay. And then, of course, they'd go into a stall while you were at the urinal. And while they were in the stall, Matthew or David would either start making high-pitched ow noises that would start like, ow, ow,
Oh God.
so they were screaming, and you're left out there and people, watching people's reaction to this. Or this is so disgusting. I can't even do the other
It's
version.
so lowbrow, but I don't know why it would make me laugh so much. It was so lowbrow.
Well, this
humor.
is. Oh, I don't know, but I can do it. The other bit that they loved in there, it involves milk. Let's just put it that way. Announcing milk.
I mean, that's some like Mel Brooks style type of comedy,
Yeah,
the
Mel
beans
Brooks
and the farts. Yeah,
yeah, even lower. That would be a tremendous compliment.
Yes, a huge compliment for sure.
This was.
Sorry, Mr. Brooks.
Not to mention Matthew. You ever drive through at McDonald's with Matthew? Did that ever happen to you?
I don't think so.
Every single time. He would ask the guy through the speaker if he knew what grimace was. Okay. Person would invariably say no. And Matthew would say, I think it's a purple shake that lost its cup.
Fair enough.
It
does make sense. I think
kind of a free floating blob of shake, purple shake.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But Hank, you were not from LA originally. You're a New Yorker.
From New York. Where
You're
I am
a New
right
Yorker.
Now.
So your origin story was just being like, did you do theater growing up? Did you do plays? Like how did you find your way to LA? Like, how did you know?
I did plays at camp and at school, but not professionally. In college, I got more serious about theater. Graduated from Tufts in Boston. I really just thought, I had this rather wise thought that I never thought I'd make it as an actor, but I knew I would regret it if I didn't try. And my parents gave me some leeway, gave me like 5 years. They said, we'll give you 5 years, we'll help you out. But I fully expected to be back at grad school by the time I was like 27 or 28. I was interested in psychology as well.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to do theater. I did theater only really in college. Couldn't get arrested on Broadway or off Broadway or off Broadway. The one job I got was like 2 lines on a TV show in LA. It was on a pilot. I was actually on a series called Joe Bash, which was done by the creator of Barney Miller. It was a cop show starring Peter Boyle. Got my union card. That got my Taft-Hartley. And then I just moved out there because Harry Gold. Were you represented by Harry Gold? Usually anybody who worked when they were young.
I wasn't, but David, were you?
Were you, David?
No, I wasn't, but I was friends with his daughter, Tracy, from Growing Pains. And her dad was legendary, right? Harry Gold.
Major child actor agent and teen actor agent. And usually folks would, if their careers had any traction, they'd leave him by the time they were like 20 years old, which I was kind of no exception. But it's a long story, but I had him, he agreed very begrudgingly to send me out. And I booked a TV movie or something and then started working a little bit. And within about a year of that, got The Simpsons. It just got.
Oh, wow.
I was 23 when I auditioned for The Simpsons.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea The Simpsons was really the first big thing. I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I met Matthew on that pilot. That was like my second job. I had done that
but
TV
that didn't
movie
get picked up, right?
No, that did not. And then I did an episode or two of the aforementioned Growing Pains.
Sure.
Did a lot of sitcoms in the late 80s, Family Ties and what else was I freaking on?
Those are two of my favorites. The Family Ties and Growing Pains were my childhood.
Those are the 80s for you. Yeah.
Late 80s, that dominated. And God, what the heck else was I on? Well, by 1980, I got The Simpsons in like 87, 88. I was on Herman's Head by like 1989. And then so I stayed in LA, obviously, because there was TV work there. I stayed there for 27 years. Yeah.
All the other work you've done, all the films and TV, you've continued to do Simpsons the entire time.
We're in season 36.
It's so remarkable. Insane. Like it's mind blowing.
Honestly, it's winning. I consider, we used to say Alan Thicke, it's very Growing Pains heavy show. We used to joke that Alan Thicke was the luckiest man in show business. I now consider myself that because it's been 36 years and it's, a few hours a week.
Oh my God.
I do it now from the living room because technology is such that you just have a dedicated laptop and a nice microphone and that's all you need.
Wow. So in the early days, you would go to the studio and record it there?
I'd go to Fox.
Right.
Then it became a recording studio, and now I just do it. Then it became a recording studio in New York because I moved back here, and now it's just right here where I'm speaking to you from.
So crazy.
How did you become a master of these accents? I mean, I didn't know you were that young right off the bat getting The Simpsons, but I, even in your film work, Along Came Polly and The Birdcage, which I want to talk about, these accents that you
your dialects.
Where did you develop that talent?
I always could do it.
Were you just a good mimic?
Yeah, it was just pure mimicry, and Matthew and David, their nickname for me was the freakish mimic. That's what they called me. Right. It would annoy them that I could pick up, voices or accents so fast. And I didn't realize it was a marketable skill really until I started acting. I kind of thought of acting as one thing and doing that as another. I didn't realize that they sort of overlap. And certainly in my case, they overlap heavily. And, getting The Simpsons was like this lightning in a bottle thing. And so doing that every week, doing, 4, 5, 6, 7 voices every week became like this laboratory where it became like a Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing where I'm just always doing accents or voices. And so that kind of, kept me sharp.
How did you get to do so many characters? Did you just click with Matt Groening and he saw your potential and just like threw different things at you?
Well, there were 6 of us and only 3. It was me and Dan Castellaneta, who does Homer and many other voices, and Harry Shearer, who does Mr. Burns and Flanders and Smithers and many other voices. And so we're doing all the male voices, of which it's an animated show about a whole town. So as we know, so there's like 100 voices to do in the first, 10 episodes of the show.
Right.
And I started out doing Mo the bartender. That was the first one. The next week it was Chief Wiggum. The next week was Apu, which I don't do any longer. And that's another whole long story. If you want to do it, I'm happy to. And then one week after another, I do more and more and more. And it was week to week for a year and a half. And then by, middle of season 2, I'm doing 20 running voices on the show. So they just gave me a contract.
And when you auditioned, did they have you do a few voices just for fun, for
Started
play?
Out just as Mo.
Crazy.
No, I was recording Mo. It was very off the cuff. I auditioned at Fox, where I'm sure you've auditioned many times in your life in one of them bungalows.
A few times.
Yeah, exactly. And at the time I was doing a play at some small theater in Hollywood. Remember Sean Sheps? Did you ever know Sean Sheps?
Yes.
She wrote this play. She became a TV writer. And I was playing a drug dealer and I was doing an Al Pacino, young Al Pacino impression. Is this kind of sleazy. Young Al, from Godfather, A Dog Day Afternoon.
Oh, my goodness.
And I did that as Mo. I said, well, how about this? I'm doing a play right now with this voice. They said, oh, we like that. As Matt Groening and Sam Simon, who no longer with us. Jim Brooks wasn't there. I said, oh, we like that, but Mo should be gravelly. So if you take out young Al Pacino and you make him gravelly, you'll get this voice, or I got it anyway. They said, that's good. Can you come record? I was like, now? They're like, yeah. So I just walked over to the, it wasn't the Marilyn Monroe. Yes. Yeah, it was the Marilyn Monroe soundstage at Fox. It's now the Marge Simpson soundstage. And recorded a few lines as Mo, which, thinking back now, they probably recorded 6 actors that day that they liked, and they probably just chose mine to put in the show. And then at the mic, the next week they went, there's this policeman. What voice would you do for that? I don't know. How about this? Yeah, that sounds good. So that was gee whiz. And then the next week it was, can you do an Indian accent? I'm like, yeah, I guess. And it just, and then it went on from there.
So it's like play.
Yeah, but did you always have someone in your life or an actor that
Yes.
you emulated that voice?
I was a true mimic. I loved to imitate ever since I was a kid. So I had all these voices ready. I did stand up for a while, and I did some impressions in my stand up, but mostly I just did stupid, bad observational comedy about what I saw on TV because I was raised on television.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just had them all ready to go. I was literally just kind of born to do that. And didn't even realize it until somebody asked me to do it every week. I was like, yeah, I got a voice for that.
It unlocked what was already in you.
Yeah, I was like, sure.
Did you understand the brilliance of those scripts, though, early on? I mean, now looking back and why it's lasted and the social commentary, I mean, there's really nothing that's been on that level, except maybe Seth MacFarlane and, Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
Yeah. And also I would put like Rick and Morty in that category. And it's created a comedy animation legacy that is, I think the funniest stuff on TV now is usually animated, in my opinion. But yes and no. No one could have imagined that it would last 36 years and no one would have believed that it would turn into like the sort of redefining of comedy thing it became. But I knew, back then, Christine, do you find this like, and David, that, I'm 60, I just turned 60. I don't know from anything anymore, meaning it was like 20 years ago that I stopped knowing who the musical guest was on SNL.
Oh my
now
God.
I don't know who the host is. I don't know who the host is.
Totally.
Right?
Yes, totally.
But back then, it went without saying, you knew your finger was on the pulse beat of everything.
Yes.
Comedically, there was a lot less to keep track of, number one. Number two, comedically, without even realizing it, you were up to the minute. Like you knew everything that went, every movie, every show, every comic, everything. So to my 22, 23-year-old mind, I didn't know it's, I wasn't aware of its like gravitas, but I knew it was really fun. Like I felt it was like, and I remember going to LA Film Festival back then, and they showed those 1 minute. It started out as like 1-2 minute bumpers on Tracy Ullman's show, and the audience flipped out at the Simpsons things. I was like, whoa, for some reason, people really respond to this. And, James L. Brooks was standing there. So you knew it like,
oh, right. Oh my God.
So you're like, well, this has a decent chance. And because of him, Fox gave us so many notes that were so bad. And Jim was able to just deflect all of them because he was the 800-pound gorilla. So so Jim created an environment where all these young, brilliant writers could just do what they wanted to do, which doesn't always work out. But
that became the coveted job in all of TV writing, right? All the Harvard Lampoon guys. Wasn't Conan started there? I mean,
Conan started there. He got his break. He had never even done stand-up. He got his audition to do his show as when he was still a writer for The Simpsons.
Right,
right. What do you mean you're going to audition to be host of a late night talk show? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I remember when he got announced as the replacement, and it was you obviously knew, but the world was sort of like, who?
Yeah,
who is this person?
Who's Conan?
Who is this person?
No,
this red-headed giant.
We knew, like, I remember the nighty audition. We were all playing poker, and because Jake Hogan, who played poker with us and was writing for The Simpsons then too, Jake couldn't believe. None of us could believe it. And yeah, it was sort of a incredible. It was incredible to see those writers, those young writers, be able to just do what they wanted to do, because that never happens.
Oh.
And a network concept.
Yeah, I can't imagine the list of writers that you've worked with over the years. It must be mind-boggling.
A couple of them are still there, but yeah, it was a lot of people who went on to do a lot of incredible things.
Did you find that getting that job opened a million doors for you in the TV world, or was that very separate and you still had to test, go to network tests.
Oh, yeah. No, it was completely separate.
Was it really?
There was it took, the show's been on so long. It took almost a decade, really. People even realized I was on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the visibility was very different. A voice was a voice. There was you weren't seeing this kind of stuff with the voice being promoted. It was just this sort of mythical.
Yeah, I couldn't go on social with my phone and recording The Simpsons today. Nothing like that.
Wow. So you were still just auditioning.
No, it was like a separate career. I mean, I would joke a lot. My Simpsons characters, their career was way beyond mine. You know what I mean?
They were the stars.
Highly visible. I was, this guy. It was really, it was getting the movie Quiz Show, which led directly to getting the movie The Birdcage, that actually opened up I had done Herman's Head, whatever that was worth. And then it was getting those two movies that sort of stamped my passport and got me more work in TV.
I remember being as someone who was one of your friends and spent time with you and knew you fairly well. When you got Quiz Show, it was such a big deal. I just remember the joy and the excitement that we all had for you. I remember going opening night and I remember either calling you or leaving a message on your voicemail of how proud I was beaming with pride, watching this friend of mine be so incredible in such an amazing film. It was a cool time.
It was. Many of us were fortunate enough, right, to get a really good break at one time or another. And we were all, rooting for each other. We were all, there's always half of you's kind of dying of jealousy because you want, I remember telling Matthew, when the Friends thing happened, I had to say, buddy, I love you. You deserve it. I'm so happy for you. I'm also wanting to kill you and myself. I'm so jealous. At this. And he was like, oh,
a little healthy competition.
Yeah. He's like, oh, buddy, I love you and you're the best. And it helped to admit, that you were dying inside too, besides being happy for the person.
Yeah.
It's a part of it.
I remember Matthew saying that. Matthew was already on Friends and we went to see There's Something About Mary in the theater. Yeah. And I remember that moment where Matthew was like, oh my God, how jealous are you of not being in that movie? Because that's the funniest movie I've ever seen. And it was just,
and you didn't know Ben at the time?
No.
Oh, that's so funny. I
didn't meet Ben until a year and a half after that.
Yeah, that movie was eye-opening for me.
Actually, was it that? Yes, I was, for a while there, I had that Matt Dillon role.
Wait,
oh
what?
My God.
Yeah.
With the big teeth.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. And it was one of those, they were negotiating it. And the story I got told was that I think Cameron might have been dating Matt at the time or something like this. And it kind of went another way.
Wow.
You never know how true these things are.
Totally.
I know, but you also never know what's going to prevent you from getting the job. It could be something as random as that.
Although it would sound funny to me that she would be able to dictate something like that at that point in her career.
Right. That's sort of what made her career, right?
I should ask Ben about this. He'd probably know the answer to.
No, Ben did. They were definitely dating, but whether or not that, Ben always famously tells the story that Winona Ryder was able to dictate Ethan Hawke being in Reality Bites because she was at that point in her career that big. She was getting that movie greenlit, but I don't think I felt like that was Cameron's breakthrough.
You know what? The truth is probably somewhere in between, which is they were dating and somebody probably said, well, he'd be great. And they're like, geez, you think we could get him? And then, probably one of those kind of things.
And see him in a comedy and
The back-to-back Quiz Show and Birdcage combination is almost nothing could compare. But we had Rob Morrow on a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah?
We talked all about Quiz Show. Christine and I rewatched it. And I don't know, what was your experience getting the role, through Robert Redford and working on that amazing classic.
Yeah, that was something because back then, as you guys know, if you worked in television, you didn't really tend to cross over.
Right. Rob even said that Robert Redford was a little condescending to him. Like, you're really good on that TV show.
I don't recall that. But my TV show wasn't visible enough for Mr. Redford to be aware of it, to be condescending about it. But, you know, it is kind of an interesting story because Herman's Head got done, which is fun. To bring it back to Richard Kind, I was sitting with Richard the day it got canceled. We did 3 seasons. And by the time it got canceled, I was bummed that I wouldn't be getting that paycheck anymore.
Right.
But I was kind of psyched because I always thought the show was kind of stupid. And I was kind of happy to be moving on from it. But you know, the day you hear it's a Hollywood moment. The day you hear your show's done,
rejected.
And I got the call. Richard, you know, was in my house, and he's like, "What's the matter?" I'm like, I just heard that Herman's Head got canceled. This is a verbatim quote. Well, you can't be surprised. It's the lowest rated show on television.
Brutal honesty.
And I was holding a pen and I threw it at him. I remember that. I was like, "You're ridiculous, man. I mean,
you're so mean.
You're just ridiculous." It's one of the many Richard Kind. We could do an entire hour Richard Kind.
We sure could, yes.
But so I called my agent. I'm usually not the squeaky wheel. But because I had been studying with Roy London for so long, who I loved, who was a wonderful acting teacher, I really felt like I had chops beyond the Herman's Heads of the world.
Yeah,
and I said, "Look, guys, I know it does." I said, I get me a movie audition or 2. I promise you I'll do well. Just get me 1 or 2, please. And they got me fucking quiz show. And I went and I read, and it went well for, who was that casting director? Anyway, she liked me and she brought me back for Redford like 2 months later. And there's a longish story about where I actually had a dream about it. I had almost like a psychic thing about it. But it came down in the end to me and Jeremy Piven.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And they had paired me, I think me with David Paymer as the 2 kind of guys, the network executives. And they had paired, I think, Jeremy Piven, with Robert Klein. And it took like months for them to decide, like months. And usually when you wait that long to hear, it's fucking no.
You've written it off. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had a feeling about it. And sure enough, you know, the call came one day and I was so psyched. And then based on that movie, Mike Nichols called one day and called me up. "Hank, it's Mike Nichols." It is?
Oh.
How did you get my number, Mike Nichols?
Right.
Well, he had talked to my manager first.
Right.
And he said, I had a meeting with him. He said, "I want to offer you any role you like in Birdcage." But they were all 1 or 2 scenes. And I ended up doing the table read for the movie. And I did like 7 parts because I was used to that from doing The Simpsons. I read like 7 different voices. One of them was this Agador Spartacus character that I did. And it got a lot of laughs at the table. But it was only like a scene or 2.
But
And
Agador was in that script.
He was just the dresser. He was
Right.
in that script. It was just the guy who got him ready to get on stage, like in the beginning of the movie.
Right.
And then the actual butler or maid or whatever you want to call that character was like in the French film that was based on, was supposed to be a black character. And I think David Alan Grier was set to play it.
That's La Cage aux Folles was.
Yes, La Cage aux Folles.
Yeah.
And they were finding in rehearsals that in an American context, having a black butler was sort of, even back then, was in poor taste, was in an American context, just seemed kind of awful. It just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't funny because they had sort of an abusive, argumentative relationship. And they figured because it was set in Miami, it should be a Latin character. And because I had done well at the table, I think it was Robin Williams' idea to say, well, why don't we just combine the 2 roles? And that was a good day when I got that Mike called then. How do you feel about playing a bigger role? I was like, no, I'm busy. What am I going to say?
Oh, that's so amazing.
But yeah, one led right to the other because Mike had liked me in Quiz Show. And then it kind of grew from there, luckily.
And that was a huge turning point in your career.
That was after that, I got offered a lot of stuff. And that was what kind of bumped me up a spot or two.
Wait, where did you come up with the Agador voice? You're at the table read. And where did you get that? My Guatemalan-ness. I mean, I watched it the other night. It's so, you're standing toe to toe.
You know, I had worked with, I didn't usually do this, but he was written to be Guatemalan, which isn't an obvious accent. There was a wonderful vocal coach who's passed away a long time ago. His name was Robert Easton. He called himself, yes, Robert Easton here. That's how he talked. Hello. And he called himself the Henry Higgins of Hollywood, meaning he could do any accent. And I worked with him pretty meticulously on a Guatemalan accent. And I had two versions of it. I had this one that ended up in the movie. And I had a little bit of a tougher one, more like the Puerto Rican street queens that I grew up with, the queens, so a little
So
more
amazing.
street. And I kind of sampled them I had a good friend who was a drag queen. And I asked him, which do you think would work better? And he picked the former one. And I realized doing it that I was really imitating my maternal grandmother. I'm a Sephardic Jew, which means Spanish Jew. And my grandmother was a woman named Esther. And she talked like this. And she was very loving and feminine and maternal. And it was good for the character. So I kind of felt not only like it sounded like her, but it helped me kind of act like Agador, very feminine and loving like this.
So great.
So that was that. It would have saved me a lot of time if I just imitated my grandmother instead of bothering with
Right.
I know, but it's still amazing that, you're channeling people in your lives or people that have influenced you and turning them into new characters. It's, amazing.
That's the mimic thing then would lead to I always found the voice, the body kind of follows the voice. And then that would sort of unlock characters for me, Along Came Polly with your husband was another. That was difficult to get the French accent to work.
Along Came Polly.
It was out for me at first to get it.
Oh my God. Are you for scuba?
You're for scuba. As long as you're for scuba, it's okay with me.
Aside from just having to work on the accent for that movie, there was a lot of body work that needed to be done because you were basically wearing no clothes.
Oh yeah, you were ripped.
As you know, when you have to be naked or semi-naked in a movie, it kind of scares you into the gym.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
And I always, I was kind of a chubby kid and was always insecure about that. So I would, I figured if I want to be an actor, I better work at that. And so I was always kind of in the gym. And then for roles like that, though, you kind of hit it harder.
Right. It gives you reason. It gives you a drive. But I remember us seeing you because I even remember that. Well, you and Ben had done Mystery Men together.
Yeah.
So many great stories, classic stories.
Yeah.
It's a running joke in our house when things are going wrong. We always say the psychofraculator. It's always just because Ben just remembers the conversations around the psychofraculator.
Yeah.
This ridiculous set piece in the third act of the movie. And Larry Gordon really trying to break down the psychofraculator.
Mystery Men, as silly, it's kind of a sweet movie. It kind of falls apart by the end. It was kind of ahead of its time.
Definitely.
But it was a misery to make it, as your husband and I will attest. And we could go into long stories about exactly why it was. And we were sort of rewriting as we went.
Yes. And there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of ideas, a lot of funny people. We had Kel Mitchell on early on the podcast who talked about being this young kid who was like,
we're all kids, but he was really a kid.
Oh, really a kid. And he was so overwhelmed by the improv, he just was like, every once in a while, I would just try something. And I remember like you or Janine, like kind of like giving him a thumbs up, encouraging him to try to hold his own. But I know the stories of all of it, there were.
Yeah. I mean, it's too long. I mean,
yeah.
What's a nugget to pull out is the point is, I don't even know why we have it started. It was a very hard movie to make. Oh, the psychofraculator. So the Act 3 revolves around this psychofraculator, which is this crazy device that's going to drive everybody on the planet crazy. And there were so many, we're all dressed as morons in this thing. And there were so many intense, horrible conversations with us dressed like idiots. Exactly. I mean, and what happened on that movie was, Ben and I, everybody, we're all rewriting as we're going, and it's kind of going well that way. But then one of the producers realizes we're doing this, okay, and gets angry about it and yells at us, God damn it, we still don't know what's happening with the psychofraculator. And that signaled the end of our rewriting days. And we had to kind of be good soldiers after that. And, you know, it's funny now, but at the time we were like, oh, my God, we're not going to rewrite anymore. This is going to be terrible.
Psychofraculator is just funny. You keep saying it.
It's funnier as a story than it was in the movie.
Exactly. Okay. It's funny. It's a funnier word, and that's about it, right?
Psychofraculator.
But I do remember, you know, you showing, fast forward and you guys are doing Along Came Polly. And I remember us all in Hawaii.
Yeah.
We got together for dinner and you showed up just in your ripped, you were camera ready. You were, spray tanned, you were ready to go. And then that wig that they put on you. We recently rewatched that movie.
I'm glad that was captured on film so I can point at that and go, see?
I had that.
At one time.
That existed.
Yes. Look at me, kids.
Exactly.
Well, but no, your character, if I remember correctly, Ben's wife, who's played by Deborah Messing, cheats on him on their honeymoon with you.
Yes, he breaks up the marriage,
and that spins the whole movie into action.
Yeah, but he's a lovable marriage breaker. He's innocent.
Well, yeah, you were so innately likable that you still didn't mind.
She give me like fire in my trouser, I think is how he put it.
It was undeniable, the chemistry. But yeah, I was thinking about this before you came on. You and Ben, you guys have done a bunch of movies together. Because then Night at the Museum 2. Which fun.
Yes.
No, I was going to say you are you have the huge role in that movie, but going back to the voices, you also voice like 3 other parts in that movie,
which I forgot about until I watched it again a few years ago with my son.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. You're Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
You're the boom boom firepower.
Yes, right? I was the thinker statue.
The thinker, and and then you had your own. You might be one other.
I might have been one other too. Yeah.
I think you are.
Yeah, they got me cheap for that. They got like got 3 for the price of 1 or something.
Exactly. I was like, Sean just asked you can you come over and do this? And then dodgeball as well.
Right. Patches O'Houlihan.
Patches
People
O'Houlihan.
really like Patches O'Houlihan. That movie is really funny. And you're in that as well, of course.
I'm in that one, but it's funny. You're funny in it. You're so good in it.
Young Rip Torn, somewhere between actual Rip and Clark Gable. That's what I was working off of there.
Young Rip Torn.
Terrifying thought, Young Rip Torn.
He's one of the greatest. One of the greatest.
The best. So for you, also, let's rewind a second. When did you do Spam-A-Lot? Where did that fall?
Much later.
Okay, because was that in the early 2000s? Somewhere? Or was that late 90s?
I turned 40 doing it, so it was like 04.
Okay.
04,
because
05 in there.
Just, talking about how you couldn't get arrested or book anything on Broadway or off Broadway. How was that experience?
A triumphant return.
Yes.
That was amazing. That was again Mike Nichols. That was one of those calls. Dear boy, We're doing a musical based on Holy Grail. We're calling it Spamalot. Can you do it? I'm like, of course, can I do it? Let me check my calendar. And yeah, I was, in heaven doing that. I was, Python and SNL sort of redefined comedy when I was about 11 or 12 years old and memorized all of it. And, I showed up the first day of rehearsal and was Spamalot off book. They're like, how'd you memorize all this? I'm like, I've been off book since I was 15 on this stuff. You think I didn't memorize every Monty Python routine there was?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a real look. I'm not a very musical person, although I did start my Springsteen tribute band.
I was going to bring that up.
Now I am although I've had to sing all through my career, but always comedically on The Simpsons mostly. And then on Ray Donovan, my character had this cover band and actually won an Emmy for that, but I don't think for my singing in particular.
Oh, you're so good on that show. I forgot that your character had a cover band.
Yeah, cover band. I was singing all the time on that show. I was like, God.
Oh my God.
And now you're the lead singer of a Bruce Springsteen cover band?
I am. We're called the Easy Street Band. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
Hank, tell this story, because Hank just had a big 60th birthday that I'll just give you our version of it, that we were invited to this big party and you gave, how many friends knew? I mean, who knew other than your family?
Nobody.
I mean, because
nobody knew, like my assistant, my family, and like two other friends who helped me out with it.
Okay. Because I remember, Hank, you left a message saying like, hey, if there's going to be this cool band, this, cool, I think did you say Bruce Springsteen cover band?
I can't remember. Springsteen cover band will be there, yeah.
Right. And it's, they're great. So if you want to get there by this time, blah, blah, blah. And we arrived I don't know how, a couple songs in, but we walked in and it was sort of walking around. And then it was it was like, wait, Hank is the cover band? It's Hank on the stage? Insane.
Did he sound like Bruce?
Okay. It was, first of all, yes, you sounded like Bruce, but it was you doing Bruce, but also telling Hank's story.
Yes. Yeah.
It was very meta.
It became like this performance art piece, which I'll do. Our first gig is at Le Poisson Rouge on Blicker Street on August 1st, our first ticketed gig. And it's kind of an evening of me telling story, like origin of the song stories, my personal connection to stories, all weaving this and that in, and doing
That's
songs.
So great,
And David, Max Weinberg was there, and Max got up and played.
Yeah, he played drums on 3 songs. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! And didn't Bruce in his Broadway show would tell stories before all the songs? From what I heard, that was his Broadway show.
He did. And I thought it was going to be more like an MTV Storytellers where he would give the origins of the songs, but it wasn't. It was really just excerpts from his autobiography. And he would kind of share very personal stories of his childhood and his life. And then kind of do songs that he wrote in that era, or even just not connected. He just kind of, it was amazing. So this is not like that.
When did you hatch this idea? And is it just, you've been a lifelong Bruce fan?
Yes.
Like obsessive.
And, yes. And which has had in turning 60 the last few years, I'm sure you can relate to this. Nostalgia the older you get, it takes on a different meaning. It becomes this aching, longing emotion that can drop you where you stand if you hear a song or you see a thing. And so Bruce's music has been that for me the last few years. And also, my son just turned 15. And I think you kind of revisit emotionally and psychologically your own self at the age where your child is.
Yes.
It's so visceral to you, which is the height of my Springsteen worship. So, and I wasn't overly thrilled about turning 60. Let's just put it that way. I was feeling ambiguous about it. And I thought, well, what would give me joy turning 60? I'm like, this music means so much to me. And as you probably know too, I'm not a huge party guy. So I've been sober 18 years. The last big party I threw for myself was when I turned 40. You might have been at that in LA. I don't know if you were there. You were. I remember being at your 30th, I think, in LA.
Good Lord. Good Lord.
And and so I was like, I would love to sing a few Bruce songs. And I just started working them up, and I got totally obsessed. Essentially, I had never sort of finished my singing training. I had been trained as a singer because we all kind of have to in one acting class or another, right? At some point, you technically learn to sing. But I never really followed through with it. And I always was singing character as Chief Wiggum or as Moe or whatever. Even on Broadway, it was silly, the singing I was doing,
right.
Knights of the Round Table and things like that. And I was there to be the guy mimicking Python voices, not singing the songs beautifully. But this was sort of a weird side door into teaching myself how to sing, because I found that I could talk like Bruce, but singing like him was a whole different thing. And I got obsessed as like a hobbyist would get obsessed, like as a vocal geek, like tinkering with singing that way and finding the right key and unlocking different registers. And with about a month or two before our little concert there, look, Christine, I would have been happy to sing 2 songs. Like if I'm lucky, 2 songs will sound okay.
Right.
And something kind of unlocked in the upper and lower register of my voice as a singer. I think as I just kept practicing that, I said, whoa, I can sing these songs now. And so we ended up giving like this concert that lasted like an hour and a half.
It was a full set.
Blown.
Yes, we have the T-shirts set with the full set list of all the songs, like the classics. That's was
so cool,
crazy.
And then we were like, we can't stop. And I raised some money for my foundation on the night because I said no gifts. But then I was like, wait a minute, we can do ticketed gigs all for charity, and that's what I'm doing, and I love it. Like. Amazing. It's my favorite thing to do in life now. The Monday after my party, I got offered 2 acting jobs. And I turned them down, and I spent all morning promoting the band, just like finding our next gig. Believe me, if the jobs were good, I would have taken. They weren't great.
Right.
No, but it's another chapter for you.
It actually is. Yes.
Turning 60 can, make you want to come outside your comfort zone, try new things, and this sounds so cool, man.
I love it. I love sharing that music with people live, and the guys in the band, they're all, in their 30s. Most of them don't know this music. I sort of introduced them to it.
Is that true? Really?
Yeah. They knew it like they know Glory Days and they know Born to Run. They didn't know any other song.
They know that album. Exactly.
And they were like, can we do Glory Days? Because we know that song.
Right.
And to me, it's like, you don't know Backstreets. You don't know Thunder Road.
You do Born to Run, of course, right?
We just added it. Here's a story about Born to Run. For this, we added 4 or 5 new songs. Had to have the huge hits like Born to Run and Dance in the Dark and Hungry Hard. So the band leader, who's this 35-year-old guy, we got this new set list, and he points at a song and he goes, do we need this one? Because I think it's sort of similar musically to Jungle Land. And he said, does a Bruce tribute band need that song? He's pointing at Born to Run. I was like, yeah, dude.
Yes.
It's a little weird for a Bruce Springsteen tribute band. That's how young these guys are.
Do we need that song?
I'm going to intro the song that way. This guy didn't even know that Born to Run was something you need to sing.
Great. So are you going to keep it that you're going to still tell the Hank story too?
Yeah, I will tell some, but yes, but I'm amending it. Some are so I'm not going to go into that whole story about my son.
Right.
Because that's so ultra personal to friends and family who were there. But I have a pretty funny, I think you missed. I teed up the whole night with the 2 times I actually met Bruce and made a complete fool out of myself.
No, tell us
it's
right now.
It's kind of a long story, but
okay.
All right. So I'm doing Spamalot, and not many people know is when you do musicals on Broadway, there's a camera that is pointing at the conductor, and you see it on a monitor backstage. And they do that so that if you're background vocal singing off stage, you can see the conductor on the monitor and know when to come in, right? But after a month of it, you don't need to know when to come in. You don't need that camera. and the camera moves, you can point it where you like, and it's facing the audience. So we would point it at the audience.
Stop.
And
To see who was in the audience?
Yes. And because celebrities always sat in the same house seats.
Right.
So we'd see who was there. And the show was super popular for like a year. So we'd see who was there. Like Tom Hanks was there, and Meryl Streep, and the next night David Byrne, the next night Jack Nicholson, and blah, blah, blah. And I especially wanted to know because I played the knight who says, "Nee." And when I would tailor the way his name changed to whatever celebrity was there. So like if Jack Nicholson was there, I would say, "We are no longer the knights who say, nee. We are now the knights who say, eki, 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 kang, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall."
No way. You could do that?
Yeah, I would change the line for whatever celebrity was there. I'd shout them out that way.
Oh my God.
So I usually knew who was there. But this night, as far as I knew, no one of note was there. So I'm off stage and I'm in my dressing room after the show, and I hear on my dressing room door, and I open it, and there is Bruce Springsteen standing there alone at my dressing room door. And I really handled it well. I went like this. I just opened my mouth wide.
As one
for you
would,
listening along, said nothing. And he comes in and he gives me his review of the show. He's like, "Man, I love that. That was great. It starts out as just like this silly, funny thing. And then it turns into this like celebration of comedy itself, man. And then it's like the songs are all silly and funny. Then it's like a celebration of musicals. And by the end, it's like this moving celebration of love and light." And I'm listening to him, and apparently I remember it because I repeated it just now. But all I'm hearing in my head is Bruce is talking to me. Bruce is talking to me. Bruce is talking to me.
Right. Is this real? Is this happening?
Freaking out. And we're there chatting long enough for me to actually say to him, to get up the nerve to tell him what he meant to me, which was a lot. And I go for it. I say, "Bruce, I just got to say, to say I'm a fan wouldn't cover it. Your music meant a lot to me. And I had some very difficult times as a teenager. And your music really got me through it, like no joke. And not just your music, but all the live recordings where you give the talks, as we called them, and where you would just talk about how you had the courage to be yourself and be creative. It really inspired me to be a creative person. I don't think I'd be standing here talking to you backstage at the Shupert Theater if not for your music. And it completely embarrassed him. We were having a nice conversation, and he totally shut. He went, "Yeah, all right, okay. That's great, man." All right. And he was like gone within 30 seconds. Like I totally kind of blew. And I learned afterwards that, he kind of walks the earth as a god. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't love that fanboy thing. I learned that he won't even like hire folks who have any hint of that. Like he just wants to be a normal guy,
Right.
Oh my God, that makes sense.
So now, okay. So I knew that. And then years later, I was at his Broadway show, as you mentioned. I went with, and Kate, my wife, she's not a huge Springsteen person either. So I was excited. I was going to introduce her to Springsteen music, and she loved it. And at intermission, they come up and they say, "Do you want to say hi to Bruce after the show?" I'm like, "Of course." So I say to Kate, "Okay, I'm not going to blow it this time. I'm going to play cool. I'm going to be calm." By the way, that's what I said to Bruce when I told him what he meant to me, but that's not how I said it. It came out more like this: "Bruce, your music meant so much to me. I had tough times as a teen, and then your talks were incredible." Like literally like that. So I don't blame him at all for going, "Yeah, all right, man.
I'm gonna go."
He's
Yeah,
having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, literally, I was like Screech from Saved by the Bell. All right, and so I'm saying, "I'm gonna play it cool this time, Kate." I'm holding her hand. I'm breathing. And there's a bunch of us on like this receiving line to meet him. He comes down with Patty, his wife, and they get to us. And I swear, guys, before he can even say hello, I go, "Bruce, you played Growing Up. Growing Up was like my favorite song. The lyrics to Growing Up on my senior yearbook page in high school, in the yearbook." And again, he looked at me for a second as if to say, "Aren't you the nut that fucked this up the last time?" And again, like, "All right, man, well, good to see you." Got right out of there.
That's amazing. You couldn't help yourself.
Oh my God.
they call it Bruce juice. Just like, there's no way I can help it. If I ever met him again, I'm sure I would do the same thing.
Yeah, like I have that with Billy Joel. If I ever got to meet him, I would flip my.
I got to go backstage with Billy Joel, and he was so sweet. Not that Bruce wasn't, by the way, but Billy was like happy to like hang.
Yes,
for like
and
half
he likes
an hour.
hearing stories. Yes, I mean we got to because I grew up in Allentown, and of course he's like, you actually are from Allentown. Like he goes, we had a whole conversation about Allentown. But it's funny that you said that, Hank, too, because Ben has the same feelings about Bruce that you do. Like and also did an impression of him on the Ben Stiller show.
Yes, I remember that. He was
a weird impression.
A Bruce impersonator, yeah.
Right. Who just counted as Bruce. Like that was, as Ben said, that was all he could do in the impression was just count.
1, 2, 3,
it's just it's just counting with Bruce, and they keep going and he keeps going. But I think he met they were at a wedding together, and Ben, this impression was out there, and Ben's also just madly like obsessed with him, and felt like the meat was not quite what he had hoped. He just felt like, he goes, I just feel like he's the guy that would offend him. And I just felt like Ben didn't even, I don't know that if he even apologized for it or.
I live in fear of if Bruce ever discovers I'm doing this. And
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Isn't that's the nut job?
That's the idiot that now he's doing it publicly.
That was full circle.
But it's that feeling too, because we went backstage after the show as well and had a moment. But it is a feeling that you're in the presence of a god in a way that David, you and I talked about it. But Hank, did you watch the We Are the World documentary?
Oh yeah, amazing.
How about the way those musicians felt around him? Even some of them, like he had that presence. He disarmed people who were and it was just that
meant a lot to me watching that, because I was working on the impression then when I saw it.
Yeah.
And I was struggling. And because the Bruce Bruce isn't always this raspy.
Right.
He tends to be this raspy at the end of his tours.
Which was that the We Are the World, right?
Yeah, where he was pretty blown out.
Yeah.
And his first take, if you notice, was really a shambles. He could barely sing it.
Yeah.
And then after a few minutes, he kind of opened it up, and it kind of inspired me as I was working on the impression to work through. I actually bruised my vocal cords working up that impression.
Oh my God. Like so you've been in real vocal. Did you have to do vocal rest? And
I did. And I needed to take some cortisone because I was so blown out. And I was really I had really taken it far. There was some Simpsons recordings too at the time where they weren't quite usable because I didn't want to tell anybody what I was doing. I was like, I'm working on this thing for charity, and it's kind of straining my voice a little bit. You can always re-record the stuff of the Simpsons if it wasn't, usable.
Right.
But yeah, I went pretty far down the road with this thing.
Wow.
But it distracted me from turning 60, which was good.
And it's continuing on. So when is is it August 1st?
August 1st. Le Poussin Rouge, which, to use a Matthew Perry joke, is French for Le Poussin Rouge.
Is that in New York?
That's it on Bleecker Street in New York. It's in Manhattan. Yeah.
Are you going to just stay in New York? Oh, you're going around.
No, I think our next gig might be in Philly and then back in New York. And depending on the size, I've now learned all about this tribute band world. And you kind of want to play like 2,000 seat theaters. That's kind of like where you want to end up as a tribute band. And so hopefully we'll be doing that and, going all over with it.
Go crush it, man.
Yes.
Have the best time.
I love it.
It's amazing.
I'm having a good time. I don't know about anybody else.
That's what. No, I'm sure they will.
It's so great. Thank you so much for coming
thanks,
on
Hank.
and spending an hour with us. You're the best.
It's good to see you.
All right, love. Happy summer.
Bye, you too.
Bye.
Take care.
Hank.
Yeah, what a great guy and what an amazing career.
I mean, the way he goes into those voices.
It's remarkable.
I mean, it's what he said. It's saying that he had been preparing for it all of his life as somebody who was a mimic You know, I feel like that,
Right.
but still, it's just the way he just goes in and out so easily. I mean, it's really a mastery, like on another plane
It's an
that I
innate,
cannot comprehend.
yeah, it's an innate ability that he's developed. He did it, I guess, developed it through your friendships with David and with Matthew and just making
Yes.
fun of these guys. And then he ends up, pulling from his grandmother is the influence behind Agador and the Birdcage. Like,
I know.
he finds people that made an impression on him and creates a character out of it. I think that's just fascinating.
Yeah. He's just always the guy who is like, brings when you see, I mean, he had huge parts in films. He's had smaller parts in films, but he's always the guy that when you see him in something, even Ray Donovan, it was like he shows up and he brings something that like it just elevates the project. Like he's so solid and so good. And yeah, I've known him for a long time.
I know. It's crazy.
Long time.
Such a great guy.
Yeah. And that's going to do it for us.
That's a wrap on this season.
I know. We should tell our listeners that is going to be the end of this season for us.
Yeah.
So, of course, and a great way to end. Hank was a perfect 90s guest to end the season on.
Perfect end of the season.
But please go back and listen to some of the old ones. If you're a newer listener and you have not listened to some of our first season episodes, please go back.
Yeah.
And, stay on Instagram for updates.
And we'll see you in the fall. But there's a lot of season 2 listeners. I don't think we're here for season 1. I mean, we have 70 episodes.
We also have the YouTube channel.
Oh my God, they're all on
So
video.
even if you've listened, you can actually tune in and see the guests. You don't need it. Just, it's fun because like, I feel like even that Hank had a moment where he said, and I did this with my face and he just opened his mouth really wide.
Yeah.
So I do feel like, yes, it is fun to watch to see
iHeart did a great
guests'
job with the
reactions.
YouTube.
So please check out the YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and we'll have updates.
Yep.
And,
keep following.
Happy summer, everybody.
Happy summer, everybody. Christine, I'll see you in New York in a few weeks.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
All right, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe and give us 5 stars.
And please follow us on Instagram at HeyDude, the 90s Called. See you next time.